The spring of 2008 should have been perfect for five best friends from Chattanooga. They'd bought matching sundresses for the Scenic train ride, planned every photo they'd take, promised their parents they'd stick together. But somewhere between mile marker 47 and the Copper Hill station, all five girls stepped off that train and into a nightmare that would take 16 years to uncover. April 12, 2008, Chattanooga Station, Tennessee. The Blue Ridge Scenic Railway gleamed in the morning sun, restored vintage cars from the 1950s, tourists already lining up for the 4-hour round trip through the Appalachian foothills. Madison Hayes, 18, held the tickets she'd bought 2 months earlier. 5 seats together in car number 3, window side. Her best friend since middle school stood beside her, Ashley Brennan, 17, the artist who'd brought 3 cameras. Brittany Cole, 18, valedictorian, headed to Vanderbilt. Chloe Patterson, 17, the quiet one who'd finally convinced her strict parents to let her go. Jessica Wu, 18, the jokester who'd made them all wear matching friendship bracelets for the trip. They'd told their parents everything. The 2 p.m. departure, the 6 p.m. return. The Copper Hill photo stop where they'd recreate their 8th grade field trip picture. The dinner reservation at Ruby's afterward to celebrate their last spring break together before graduation scattered them to different colleges. Madison's mother, Carol, had dropped them off, taken 17 photos of them posing by the train, made them promise to text from Copper Hill. Normal teenage girls on a normal Saturday adventure. 4 hours there and back. What could go wrong? The conductor that day was Earl Watson, 62, worked the Blue Ridge line for 11 years. Gray beard, conductor's cap, the kind of grandfather figure who knew every mile of track, every scenic viewpoint, every story about the railway's history. Passengers loved him. He'd punch tickets with a smile, point out hidden waterfalls, tell jokes over the intercom. Nobody suspected that Earl had debts, gambling debts, the kind that men in Atlanta would break your knees over. But here's what made that Saturday different. At 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes before departure, a man approached Earl at the station, tall, clean-shaven, expensive camera around his neck, introduced himself as Tom Bradley, freelance photographer for Southern Living magazine. Said he was doing a feature on spring in Appalachia, needed authentic shots of real tourists enjoying the scenery, offered Earl $500 cash to point out photogenic passengers, maybe convince a few to pose at Copper Hill. Earl needed the money. He took it. The train departed on schedule, 82 passengers including the 5 girls who'd claimed the best seats in car 3. They were perfect for Tom's supposed magazine shoot, young, pretty, matching sundresses, the kind of wholesome American image that sold magazines. Earl made his rounds, punching tickets, and when he reached the girls, he mentioned the photographer. "Professional photo shoot at Copper Hill," he said. "Southern Living wants real people, not models. You girls would be perfect." Ashley was thrilled. She wanted to study photography in college. Madison thought it would be a fun story. Brittany worried about stranger danger, but Jessica pointed out they were in public, on a train, surrounded by people. What could happen? Chloe just wanted to fit in, to not be the one who said no to an adventure. They agreed. Earl moved on, collected another $500 from Tom Bradley when he passed through car 2. Easy money for pointing out pretty girls. 3:15 p.m. The train pulled into Copper Hill for its scheduled 20-minute photo stop. Passengers scattered across the platform, taking pictures of the old depot, the mountain views, the vintage signs. Tom Bradley approached the 5 girls with professional confidence, showed them a fake Southern Living ID, talked about lighting and composition, made them feel special, selected, important. But the platform shots weren't quite right, he said. Too many tourists in the background. There was a meadow just past the depot, 2 minutes walk, perfect wildflowers, ideal lighting. The train wouldn't leave for 15 minutes, plenty of time. The girls followed him. Of course they did. It was broad daylight, public place, official photographer. Madison texted her mom, "Getting professional photos taken?" So cool, with a selfie of the 5 of them following Tom toward the meadow. That photo would become evidence, studied and enhanced, the last image of them free. You can see Tom Bradley in the background, but his face is turned away. Deliberate, practiced. He knew about cameras, about angles, about avoiding identification. 3:30 p.m. The train whistle blew. First warning. Passengers started returning to their cars. Earl walked the platform, counting heads, checking his watch. The 5 girls weren't back. Tom Bradley wasn't back. Earl felt the first twist of panic. He'd seen them walk toward the meadow. He jogged that direction, called their names. Nothing. The meadow was empty except for tire tracks in the grass, fresh, deep, the kind a heavy vehicle makes when it accelerates quickly. 3:35 p.m. Second whistle. Final call. Earl had a choice. Delay the train, raise alarm, admit he'd taken money to point out those girls, or stay quiet, hope they just wandered off, would turn up safe. The train had a schedule. Corporate didn't tolerate delays, and those men in Atlanta didn't tolerate missed payments. Earl made his choice. He told the engineer the missing passengers had probably caught a ride back. Happened sometimes, tourists getting confused about the schedule. The train left Copper Hill at 3:37 p.m. The 5 empty seats in car 3 stayed empty all the way back to Chattanooga. 6 p.m. Chattanooga station. Carol Hayes stood in the parking lot with the other parents, balloons for Madison's graduation tied to her wrist. The passengers disembarked, families reunited, the crowd thinned, no girls. Carol found Earl, asked about Madison. He said he didn't know, thought they'd left early, maybe caught a ride. Carol's first call was to Madison's phone, straight to voicemail. Then Ashley's, Brittany's, Chloe's, Jessica's, all dead. By 6:30, 5 families were panicking. By 7 o'clock, police were at the station. The investigation started immediately but hit walls everywhere. Tom Bradley didn't exist. No Southern Living photographer by that name, no magazine assignment, no record of anyone matching his description working in media. The fake ID he'd shown was professional quality but led nowhere. The tire tracks in the meadow matched a common van type, thousands in the region. No cameras at Copper Hill Depot. Too rural, too old, nobody had thought it necessary. Earl Watson broke on day 3. Admitted taking the money, pointing out the girls, but swore he thought it was legitimate. Described Tom Bradley in detail. 6 feet, brown hair, slight accent, maybe Texas or Oklahoma, scar on his left hand. Polygraph said he was telling the truth about not knowing Bradley's real purpose. He was fired, charged with endangerment, but the charges were dropped. No evidence he knew it was a kidnapping. He moved to Florida in shame, never spoke publicly about that day. But here's what changed everything 16 years later. September 2024. Earl Watson, now 78, was dying of liver cancer in a Jacksonville hospice. Called for Detective Janet Ross, the original investigator who'd moved to Florida in retirement. Had something to tell her before he died, something he'd remembered, or maybe always known but been too scared to admit. Tom Bradley had a partner. Earl had seen him just once, sitting in a white van beyond the depot, engine running. Young guy, maybe 25, baseball cap, nervous looking. But what Earl remembered now, what he'd suppressed or forgotten, was the van's partial plate. First 3 characters, T4J, Tennessee registration. He'd noticed because his own plate started with T4. Small detail, meaningless then, everything now. The FBI ran that partial through historical DMV records. In 2008, only 43 white vans in Tennessee had plates starting with T4J. Cross-referenced with criminal records, one name emerged. Kyle Jamison registered a white Ford van, T4J8829, reported it stolen 2 days after the girls disappeared. Convenient. Kyle had a record, attempted kidnapping in 2003, charges dropped. His known associate? Marcus Webb, 6 feet, brown hair, born in Oklahoma City, scar on his left hand from a bar fight in 2006, October 2024. Marcus Webb was living in Houston under the name Martin Walker, working as a wedding photographer. Real studio, real business, hundreds of legitimate clients over 16 years. The FBI arrested him at a sunrise shoot, bride and groom watching in horror as their photographer was dragged away in handcuffs. Webb's laptop contained encrypted folders. It took NSA assistance to crack them. Inside, photos of girls, dozens of them, all matching a type. Pretty, young, small town, the kind who'd trust a photographer. But here's the horrifying twist. Webb wasn't keeping the girls, he was selling them. The encrypted files included transaction records, Bitcoin transfers, coded communications with buyers. The 5 girls from Chattanooga had been sold within hours of leaving that train. Madison and Ashley went to a buyer in Mexico City, Brittany and Chloe to someone in Montreal, Jessica to Los Angeles, all separated, all renamed, all disappeared into trafficking networks that specialized in breaking middle-class American girls for wealthy international clients. Kyle Jamison was found dead in his Memphis apartment, heroin overdose, probably murdered to prevent testimony. But Webb talked. Faced with life in prison or death penalty, he gave up everything: names, routes, methods. The girls from the train weren't his first or last. Between 2006 and 2010, he'd taken at least 19 girls using the photographer cover. Small towns, tourist spots, places where girls felt safe. Always had a partner driving, always moved them within hours, always destroyed their phones immediately. November 2024. The FBI task force followed Webb's information to a compound outside Juarez. Mexican authorities raided at dawn, found 17 women, different ages, different nationalities, all held in concrete cells. Among them, Jessica Wu, now 34, who'd spent 16 years believing her family had sold her. That rescue was impossible, that her old life was a dream. She didn't recognize her own name at first, didn't believe the agents were real. Had to be shown photos of her parents, still searching, still hoping, before she broke down crying. But Jessica was the only one found. Madison, Ashley, Brittany, and Chloe had been moved so many times, sold and resold, that even Webb's records couldn't trace them. They'd vanished into a global network that changed identities like shuffling cards. Could be anywhere, could be dead, could be living under such different names and circumstances that they'd never be found. Jessica couldn't help. They'd been separated that first day, drugged, transported different directions. She'd never seen them again. Jessica's return to Chattanooga was not the homecoming anyone imagined. 16 years of trauma couldn't be erased with hugs and tears. She couldn't sleep in a room with unlocked doors, couldn't be around men, couldn't remember her childhood friends except as faces in nightmares where they're all screaming in different languages. Her parents had divorced, her younger brother didn't remember her. Her high school had been demolished. The life she'd been stolen from no longer existed. The other families still wait. Carol Hayes keeps Madison's room exactly as it was, graduation balloons still tied to the bedpost, deflated and dusty but not removed. Ashley's parents run a missing persons foundation. Brittany's mother died in 2019, never knowing. Chloe's parents moved to California, but fly back every April 12th to ride the train, hoping maybe this time they'll see her at Copper Hill. They never do. Marcus Webb was convicted on federal trafficking charges, 19 counts of kidnapping, conspiracy to commit slavery. Life without parole in ADX Florence. At sentencing, he showed no remorse, called the girls products, and their families suppliers who didn't know they were supplying. When Jessica gave her victim impact statement, Webb smiled at her. She had to be carried from the courtroom. Earl Watson died 2 weeks after his confession. His last words to Detective Ross: "I see them when I close my eyes. 5 girls in sundresses getting on that train. Getting off that train. If I'd just said no to the money, if I'd just delayed departure, if I'd just done anything different." Ross told him forgiveness wasn't hers to give. That belonged to 5 families, and 4 of them might never get the chance to refuse it. The Blue Ridge Scenic Railway still runs the same route, still stops at Copper Hill for photos, but now there are cameras everywhere, security guards, mandatory head counts, GPS trackers for all passengers. The meadow where the girls were taken is fenced off, private property signs every 10 feet. Locals say it's cursed. Flowers planted there die. Birds don't nest in those trees. Even deer avoid it. Tom Bradley was never just Tom Bradley, and the photographer scheme was used across the Southeast. After Webb's arrest, FBI found similar disappearances in Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina. Same pattern, scenic locations, young girls, fake photographer, white van. At least 30 missing, only Jessica and 2 others ever found. The network Webb supplied stretched from Mexico to Eastern Europe to Southeast Asia. Dismantling it would take years, and most of the girls fed into it would never surface. Jessica Wu lives under a new name now, location protected, trying to build something from the ruins. She doesn't take photos anymore, can't stand cameras, covers her face when she sees one. She's 34, but moves like someone older, careful, always checking exits. The friendship bracelet she wore on the train was still on her wrist when she was rescued, the threads worn to nothing, the pattern unrecognizable. She kept it anyway. Only piece of April 12, 2008 that stayed with her through hell. The last photo Madison Hayes ever took was that selfie walking toward the meadow. Her mother has it printed, framed, looks at it every morning. 5 girls in matching sundresses, smiling, unaware they have 3 minutes of freedom left. Tom Bradley blurred in the background, leading them away from everyone who loved them. The meadow visible in the distance, sunny and inviting, the kind of place where nothing bad should happen. The timestamp reads 3:27 p.m. By 3:35, they were gone. By 3:37, the train was leaving without them. By 4 o'clock, they were separated forever. Some stories end with justice, some end with reunion. This one ends with Jessica Wu learning to sleep without screaming and 4 families still waiting for phones to ring. It ends with Earl Watson dead from cancer and guilt. It ends with Marcus Webb in solitary confinement, planning appeals he'll never win. It ends with a meadow in Copper Hill where wildflowers grow but nobody picks them, where the sun shines but feels cold, where 5 girls walked in but only tire tracks came out.